Okay. Okay. Yeah. No. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. Alrighty. You guys hear me okay? Yeah? Okay. 안녕하세요, 여러분. Привет, товарищи. Bonjour, mes amis. Ahlan, חבר'ה. Sup, fam? International Shiur represented. Okay. How is everybody? Feel free to unmute yourselves while we're waiting for everyone to join.
Doing good. How are you?
Baruch Hashem.
Yeah.
The quarantine is starting to lift in Israel, and it's so crazy. Like, I left my neighborhood for the first time. I took a bus today for the first time. And
wow.
it was wild. It was really, yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, we're inside just forever. We're just gonna be here forever.
It's not forever. It feels like forever, but it's not forever.
It's good though. We're having fun.
It definitely feels like forever. So what have you guys been doing to just keep yourselves busy? Because there's only so many times you can, like, I don't know, just do certain things, and then it's just like, I'm gonna lose it. So any new hobbies, any new anything to, like, I don't know. I mean, I taught myself to edit, like, on Movie Maker, which is like super primitive, but hey, just making like really cheesy K-pop fan videos. I am not joking. It's totally fun, and yeah. And of course, continuing to learn Korean, that's just also a heck of a lot of fun. So yeah,
why did you
anybody
start
else?
learning Korean?
What?
I was wondering, why did you start learning Korean? Like, when did you, why did you decide to start learning Korean?
It is all Ariela's fault. Ariela Craven, you know who you are. What happens is, it's diabolical, really. You know, you start watching K-dramas, and then you get addicted, as you know, Stephanie, you get sucked in, and then suddenly your ear starts picking things up, right? Oh, I recognize that, Kenchana, Araso. And then all of a sudden you're like, hey, I'm already picking up so many words, why don't I just learn it? And it's just a snowball of evil.
Oh, wow.
Anyway.
It's good, though.
Hey, I'm not complaining. Yeah, I mean, like I always tell my kids, like, you know, learning a new language is awesome because it's just every language is a key to like another person. So
True.
That's one of the cool things that over the homeschooling period, one of my kids decided to take learning Russian very seriously. So I'm actually going to post, I guess, on Facebook, like a picture of his notebook where, like, literally he was like, I might want to go on shlichus to the former Soviet Union one day, and so I just want to be ready. And so now I used to spell like a first grader in Russian, and so for me it was great because I had to like up my game. So I'm like looking stuff up, like, am I spelling this correctly in my head? And then it's like, yes, 3 times out of 10 I got the spelling right. Awesome. Anyway.
I feel like Russian is so hard. I don't know. Like my sister's in-laws are Russian. And it's like, so I would try to say something. She's like, just don't try. Stop trying.
Honestly, if it weren't my mother tongue, I don't think I would attempt to learn it because you literally break your teeth on it. It's so many syllables and like crazy syllables, and yeah. So for me, I just take it for granted, but yeah, I don't think I would just naturally pick it up. Like, just, oh, why not?
My husband's
Korean's
Turkish.
easier from that perspective. What?
I said my husband's Turkish, so I've been trying to learn Turkish, and his mother-in-law's been with like the past 6 months. So we're working on it because she doesn't really speak that much English. So we're like meeting in the middle. It's good though.
So Turkish is closest etymologically to which language? Like in one of the Arabic languages, or no? Because I've heard it sounds totally different. It doesn't sound what?
Yeah, it's pretty different from Arabic, I think.
Totally.
Like, they don't use Arabic letters or anything. It's very
right. The alphabet is totally different. Everything's
I don't know what I would say it's most similar to, but
it sounds like a European language, actually.
Yeah, it seems almost more European. It's not. I don't think it's like actually a very difficult language. It's just like, I guess on the scale of like, I guess they grade languages and how difficult they are, but like, yeah. Still, like, I'm not great at languages, so it may be hard for me, but.
Okay. Are we still waiting for anybody, or we're basically ready to rock and roll? Rena, what do you think? We're ready to go? Yes, you. How many Renas are there?
I'm good.
Okay. All right. So a quick recap. Just FYI. So I think we're going to try next week that the class should be an hour and a half. Also, Tahara had asked that we always start off with a recap. That makes perfect sense because, you know, a week is a long time. A heck of a lot happens. I mean, hey, the whole world could change, you know, like high in 24 hours. So, yeah, a week is a really, really, really long time now. Like, I'm feeling that so intensely. How long just one day is, where you just check on the news and, like, so much can change. It's so insane. So, yeah. Also, did anybody get the brain teaser from last week? Sarah Plutkin, if you're on No Cheating, you're not allowed to answer. Did anyone catch what story in Shmuel Aleph did the K-drama come to, like, shed light on? Specifically the chapter with the princess having a tantrum about why do princesses have to marry losers? Why can't, you know, princesses marry war heroes or promising political figures? Did anyone catch? You guys know what part of the K-drama I'm talking about, right? Where the little princess has a total massive crush on her brother's tutor, and basically her father says absolutely out of the question because he's a promising politician and I need him to be a political figure, therefore you can't marry him. Anyone know what this sheds light on?
Could it be with Michal, the daughter of Shaul?
Ah, nice. Okay, fill in the blanks for the rest of us, Sarla.
Oh, my memory's a little rusty. David HaMelech wanted to marry her, and Shaul didn't want. Oh no. Okay.
No. How did David end up becoming the son-in-law of King Shaul? Whoa, what?
He was dancing when they returned the Aron.
No, oh my gosh, timeline is a little bit off.
Okay,
no, that was already after Shaul's dead. He's been king. He and Michal have been separated for like 20 years. No, that's later. That's Perek Vav, I think, of Shmuel Bet. And I'm in Perek Tet Zayin or Yud Zayin of Shmuel Aleph.
So then I don't know.
Okay, well, totally 10 points for getting the right answer. So just a quick little recap for that. Basically, the way David is introduced into Bichlal, the Tanakh, is in the David and Goliath story, right? David and Goliath, where Shaul is in a major, major dilemma. There is this 9-foot giant, Philistine giant, threatening the Jewish people, and Shaul is at a loss as to what to do. He's saying, look, send a champion, send a representative, and if he conquers me, that's it. The whole war is off, save casualties, you know, and we'll be your slaves. But if I win against your representative, then you guys are slaves to us. Now, anyone know what the irony is in that statement? That you have a giant, you know, who's several feet taller than your average male, who's challenging the Jewish people, saying, send a champion. What's the irony there? Who's supposed to be the person to raise his hand first and say, I volunteer? Because he's quite simply a giant, and it's like fair game.
Was Og the wrong timeline for this?
Don't be afraid. Come on. What do you think it is? Is it okay if I call you Alicia, or should I call you Esther Ita?
I guess just call me whatever you want. I don't know.
No, it's your name. You tell me what you're comfortable with.
I mean, I go by Esther Ita now.
Okay,
but some
done.
people still call me Alicia. I was gonna guess Og, but I don't know if it's the right timeline.
Good try, but no, he's definitely way too early. There's a different giant living in Shaul's own time. And who is that person? That is, we're told in the Tanakh, he's at least a foot taller than all other normal-sized men. Not Yemenite men, and not... Who?
Is Shimshon taller than everyone?
Shimshon is we don't know how many years earlier, but I'm going to just throw out, he's a couple of centuries earlier.
Oh.
Wasn't Shaul very tall?
Ah, who said that?
Sarah.
Yes, right. The very first thing we are told about Shaul is that he's good looking, and that every Jewish male, like average size male, only reaches his shoulder. That he is, from the shoulder up, towering over every other guy, right? So he's built like an NBA player. So basically the irony is that Shaul, who is himself a giant, is cowering in the face of Goliath. Okay, so that's a very subtle dig at Shaul, where he says in dismay, who shall we send to face the giant? Hi, just try looking in the mirror, buddy. But he doesn't have that kind of confidence. That's really Shaul's biggest, plague, is lack of self-confidence. So basically, who does he end up sending? A gingy little pipsqueak, right? David HaMelech, he appears on the stage, says, let me at him. I've got my slingshot, I've got my pebbles. Bring him, I'll take him on. And basically, what is the prize that Shaul offers anybody that can beat Goliath? It's something dastardly. He says, the family will be exempt from taxes, and they can marry the princess. Because Shaul, because of his lack of confidence, he's very easily threatened by anybody. And so basically, what's going on is the way, as it's said in the K-drama, you clip the wings of a very promising political leader is you marry him off to the princess. So basically, the way Shaul is nixing any promising, charismatic, powerful, mighty leader, marry him off to the princess. Retain your power and make it look suave as heck, right? You look like you're giving him the biggest gift in the world. Oh, my beloved son-in-law, your family's exempt from taxes, you live in the palace, you marry the princess, and hi, you are completely politically my little puppet. So, just food for thought. Okay. Okay, I'm hearing background noise, so whoever has the male voice in the background, I'll request that you mute unless you need to answer a question. Okay, so recap for last time. We, let's see, we went through the drama and we went through most of the points I wanted to bring up. Obviously there's more, but when we get to the relevant parts of Melachim, I will, just refer us back to that particular scene, character, whatever in the drama. possibly other chapters, just because, as you know, I mentioned last time, I have this whole crazy A4 size table, actually more than one sheet, of literally episode, minutes, what part of Tanakh this is relevant to. I also posted all the questions on Facebook, right? So you don't need to remember them. You don't have to rewatch the Shiur. The questions that I read through and that we're going to be continuing to answer today are up on Facebook. So I'm not going to reread them, you know, in a detailed bullet point fashion. We answered, as far as I recall, about 2 of the questions. So just to go through that, the first question was, why is the story opening with a story about King David when Melachim is about Shlomo and all of the heirs afterwards? Like, this story about David should have been tacked on to the end of Shmuel Aleph. So, Shmuel Bet. So the sages answer that basically the book of Kings is about Shlomo, and that's what the story is, that David is basically a secondary character here on a certain level, because he's just there to shed light on how Shlomo assumed the throne. What is the foundation for the Davidic dynasty? So that's why the story opens with him. Now, we had other questions on this cringy story and David's role in it, and that we didn't answer. So that we're going to answer today. The other question that we asked, one other thing about why open with this story with it being cringy, and about David making him look so pathetic and embarrassing. So I had suggested a more academic approach from Herzog College, basically saying that because kingship is something that is so easy to deify, it lent itself for millennia so easily to becoming idolatry. The king himself was always perceived as a deity. And what do you mean? Of course his children are also deities. And so it's so easy, like the line between, there is no separation of church and state, so the line between, you know, political leader and religious leader is like a hairline of perception. So some academics wanted to suggest that that's why the book opens with ridiculing it and showing how a king, at the end of the day, can be helpless. He's just a man at the end of the day. He's not a deity. His children are not deities. Let's get some Jewish perspective here, which again, when Sefer Dvarim introduces the laws of a king, they all lead back to the same point, which is the king should stay humble. He should remember he's just a person. The refrain that repeats itself throughout the Psukim is, his heart should not rise above his brother. V'lo yarum levavo me'alechav. Remember, these are your brothers. You're not above them. You're not better than them. You know, like, you've got morning breath too in the morning. It also smells like there's just, you know, you're just a person. And so here at the end of such an amazing career, where David could easily be deified, Chazal are like, you know what? Get a little perspective here. Okay, we also had a slew of questions on Adoniyahu and what makes him tick, and it was super perplexing, right? One is, why did he even attempt to, like, rule? Did he not learn from his stepbrothers who also attempted to seize the throne? Did he really think that David was not going to find out? And not only that, we see he gives up so easily, whereas Avshalom fights to the bitter end, you know, grotesquely. And then, like, Adoniyahu, as soon as he just hears in hearsay, oh, by the way, Shlomo is ruling, boom, he waves the white flag, willingly bows before Shlomo, doesn't even put up a fight. What is up with that? Everything about him is perplexing. So the answer that we gave was the Malbims last time, where the Malbim connects the dots beautifully. And he basically says, look carefully at the structure of the story, right? If you notice, and again, I posted the breakdown, the major junctions of the story also on Facebook, where we see that every time Adoniyahu is introduced, Avishag is introduced, and vice versa. Meaning she starts off the story, then all of a sudden, from out of nowhere, he pipes up. Now, the other thing is that they're also introduced almost symmetrically. The only 2 characters that are introduced with adjectives and similar adjectives and totally unnecessary adjectives. We're told about Avishag that she's beautiful. Who cares? She's simply a human electric blanket. She could be ugly for all we care. What the heck is up with this? And then all of a sudden, lo and behold, in one of the next verses, Adoniyahu is introduced also as good looking. Oh, what's up with that? So we could explain, oh, well, that actually makes sense because that seems to be a prerequisite for the charisma necessary to rule, right? His brothers who also attempted to rule also used their good looks as, Rena, I'm glad you appreciated the human electric blanket. You know that Avshalom was known for his tremendous beauty, and that's how he managed to, quote unquote, as it says in Shmuel Bet, steal the hearts of the people. But that's not, according to the Malbim and other commentators, that's not why Adoniyahu's beauty is mentioned. It's to create a symmetry, saying that that is the tie that binds them. That, as the Malbim pointed out, that when he sees her in the palace, he is struck by her tremendous beauty, and he's struck also by something else. Ladies, what that the K-drama helped us understand, what else is he struck by? He falls in love with her tremendous beauty, but what really seizes him, what poignant idea? No, I'm not crying because of that, just like something went in my eye. One sec, I'm trying to...
Is it just because she's...
Whoa, what?
Is it because she's like gonna be stuck? Is it because she's gonna be stuck in the palace? Like,
yes,
because he
yes,
knows
yes,
that...
precisely. Just like the concubine's son, Prince, right? The one that everybody kept confusing with the teacher, right? So again, he goes before the king and says, everybody knows. This is like a fixed game. Everyone knows that Yunwoo, the female protagonist, has no chance to win yet. Her parents have enrolled her in the Betulot list, right? In the maiden list. So she's part of the beauty contest. And that means that she will be destined, or doomed rather, to die a virgin, or whatever. And even if, the king is with her once, she's doomed to a miserable life. So I cannot sit back and just be apathetic to that, right? The concubine's son, Prince, also was in love with Yunwoo. And additionally, he was also willing to sacrifice everything, his own personal glory and power, in order to liberate her from this doom, right? You guys recall that scene where he just says to her, let's run away, and she thinks he's kidding. So he's like, oh, to save his pride, he's like, of course I was kidding. But basically he says, I'll give it all up, I'll give up my title, let's just run away, because I don't want you to be miserable. So the Malbim paints exactly that picture without having seen the K-drama, lo and behold. He also says, that Adoniyahu says, if I can just be king long enough to have a legitimate legal claim why I can marry her, because we already went through this, so I'm not going to rehash it, right? Only a king can marry a claim. So that's the thing. Oh, Sapir, I'll address your point in a sec. So we had said that, oh, Tahar, I think, sent me a question saying, did we address whether or not after David's death, can Avishag marry somebody else? So the answer is al pi halacha, like any of the king's widows, she can marry another king, if I'm not mistaken. She for sure can, because technically she was still a virgin, but she still was only fit for royalty. So according to the Malbim, Adoniyahu wants to just receive the title of king so that he could find a legal loophole to marry her. And as the Malbim puts it, he said, I will even potentially put myself in danger of being executed for treason in the off chance that if I survive this, then I'll legally be able to marry her and I'll be able to free her from this life of misery. Wait, Sapir, remind me the question because I already forgot it. Can the chat window pop up again?
Yeah, if you press on chat, it will pop up again. But
that's not much. God, you people are so demanding. I'm just trying to keep like a train of thought happening and like not get distracted by everything. Right, the royal men care about the lowly concubines. So basically, one of the things that I heard once that just blew me away, I'm pretty sure I heard it from Rav Yaakov Meidan, who's currently the Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshivat Har Etzion, otherwise known as Gush, should rule over the Gush, for many, many decades. But before he was Rosh Yeshiva, the women of Migdalos were blessed to learn from him, and he taught in Herzog College, and I used to sign up every opportunity possible to learn from him. And basically, he once said that He said all of history's, or he didn't say all, but he said many of history's major decisions were decided in the bedroom. Bam! Yes, just go through your French history, go through British history, whether it's Henry VIII, whether it's pick your Louis, whatever it is. And so, yes, very much so. It's not ridiculous. When we get to Shir HaShirim, Be'ezrat Hashem, we'll see that really, like, love doesn't really care so much about class, caste, all of those outer trappings. As pops, a famous pop song will tell you, love will happen when it wants. To a certain degree, that is true, even if you're royalty. And again, that's, according to the Malbim, that's one of the major things that the story of Shir HaShirim is actually hinged on. But that's, kind of a spoiler. So basically, in a nutshell, Adoniyahu doesn't really want to rule. He just wants the title as a legal loophole. And so that's why as soon as Shlomo rules, he's like, yes, touchdown. That's all I wanted. Here, go rule. I don't need the headache of, like, making decisions and signing treaties and going out to war and the economy. I don't care. I just want to be Avishag. I just want her not to be sad. Okay. But there were certain questions that we did not answer about that. Hold on. Yes. Okay, so that's what we did cover. Now we are ready to launch into what we did not yet cover. And so one, that is the question of, given that, David just needs someone to keep him warm physically, why does it have to be a female? Why does it have to be an attractive, virginal female? You guys asked, why can't it be one of his wives, right? Like, he already has 18 wives. They can certainly fulfill the task. And so I'm going to attempt to use the Blackboard successfully through Zoom. It will definitely be trial and error. Bear with me, ladies. Okay, I hope you can see it well enough. I'll try to move it forward if need be. How clear is the writing? Also, it appears to me backwards. Do you guys see it the right way? Yes? Fantastic, Saphir. Thank you. Okay, so, all right, let's try to do this. As you see, I have it set up. You guys can still hear me even if I'm moving around? Yeah? Okay, good. Thank you, Gemma and Rina. Okay, so according to Pshat, what do you think the answer would be? Like, just why is he having difficulty keeping his body heat? Why is the clothing no longer working? And why does he even need someone to provide body heat for him? What, Rina? I can't hear you.
I mean, I'm going with the pshat here because he's getting old and he's towards the end of his days.
That's all I'm asking for is pshat, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, is that clear or not visible? What I wrote under the pshat sentence, visible or not? Kind of sketchy. All right, Beseder.
The old age is pretty visible.
Oh, yeah? Okay. Hold on.
Like, if you could try to, like, write in a big font. Oh.
Or, no, it's a question, I'm going to try to emphasize it. Hold on.
Yeah.
It was better before.
Oh, yeah?
Okay.
Yeah.
I think, well, now that, if you don't want to have to go over it twice, it was better before. Now there's like more of a glare, I think.
Okay, the Seder. All right, well, I could always rotate the light. Okay, still glare? No? All right, we'll figure this out. Okay, so basically the question, all the questions are kind of interwoven, like why the virgin, why the beautiful? Well, we partially answered why the beautiful. The reason her beauty is mentioned is partially to basically talk about the rest of the plot. But on David's own level, that is what we're trying to get to. Okay, now on the level of Drush, I know some of you did peek into Rashi. Did anyone else other than like the people who mentioned it? So the Midrash takes it in a very, very strange place, although it is true to form for Midrash. Basically, if you open up Rashi, he quotes two different Midrashim. One, he says, because he sinned and he did not respect clothing, therefore clothing ceased to serve him. When did David not respect clothing? Anyone remember? So basic, Rena, you know? You were doing the happy dance. Ah, very good, Samantha. Exactly. Samantha said exactly correctly that when he sees Shaul sleeping in the cave, that he rips a corner of his cloak off in order, well, we don't really know why. I've actually heard different opinions why he does that. I heard one opinion because he just needed some kind of catharsis, like he needed to let out his rage as to being, you know, just really groundlessly persecuted by Shaul. So that was like a small little thing that he did to just kind of let steam off. But regardless, our sages, and again, what seems to lend credence to that it wasn't from a place of like, oh, there's some great prophecy that he has to fulfill by ripping the cloak. It really was coming from a place of inner battle. Is the sages say he was punished for it. Again, if he did something that was praiseworthy, why would he be punished for it? So our sages say he didn't control himself and he disrespected clothing, and therefore he was punished in his old age that clothing would no longer serve him. This is a motif among the sages, right? Like, why does Moshe Rabbeinu not do the first three plagues? Anyone recall the Medrash, right? It says that Aaron had to do the first three, because the first two is taking a staff and smiting the Nile, and the third one was smiting the earth. Why does Moshe not do it and he outsources it to Aaron? Rina?
Sorry.
Esther, you have paper, scissors, rock, quick.
I was gonna answer.
Go ahead.
It's because he hit the rock for water.
The rock happens later, but I'm talking about that. Yeah, Rina.
Out of Hakar Satov, because the Nile and the earth both saved him. One carried him when he was a baby, and the other he was able to cover up the body of the mystery that he killed.
Even inanimate objects, when a person is truly righteous and refined, they need to be aware of the karma even within them. And so because Moshe saw that the water had saved his life when his mother put his basket in the Nile, and the Nile protected him and did not let him drown, and also the earth, when he killed the Egyptian and he had to hide the body in the sand, and the earth, as if it was his accomplice, right? Whatever that means in the grand scheme of things, the way our sages put it, the earth actually complied with Moses and hid the body for him, and therefore he said, out of gratitude to the earth and the water, he refused to smite them, and he outsourced that to Aaron. So too, this is in line with David, that here David somehow preached the gratitude that he's supposed to have to the clothing, and therefore the clothing says, we refuse to serve you any longer. The other medrash that Rashi brings is even more perplexing, where if somebody wants, just look up the last chapter of Samuel 2. It's one of the most disturbing stories theologically in the entire Tanakh. Sarah Plotkin emailed me saying, what the heck is up with this? And I said, Sarah, it has been disturbing me for 2 decades at least. It literally I have no idea how to reconcile this because it's so profoundly disturbing. So, but basically the Medrash refers to that, where David does a sin, but the thing is, it's not his own decision. Basically, God kind of like leads him to it. Without going into the whole story, Rashi says, when he saw the angel in that story at the very last chapter of Samuel 2, standing there with the sword threatening the Jewish people, David's blood ran cold. That's what it says literally. From fear, his blood ran cold. And so after that, he was no longer able to warm himself. Now again, what that could mean on multiple levels, right, is like the guilt, right, being tormented by how many casualties happened at his hands. That is what tormented him. What that has to do with clothing, that's a whole separate discussion. But the interesting thing that Rashi is doing there with his commentary is he's using a technique called smichut parashiyot, which means proximity of the sections. So instead of making chapter 1 of Kings look completely disconnected and disjointed and kind of like a cold open, like, okay, hi, this has nothing to do with anything, it's saying, no, what do you mean? This is a direct cause and effect from the very, very end. Did you not read where Samuel 2 ends off? It ends off with that horrific, disturbing story. And so, of course, Melachim 1 starts off where it does. David is tormented by the way Samuel 2 closes, and Kings 1 opens exactly at that place. So that's just food for thought about that. So now we said in the little movie that I made about Pardes, here we see a classic example of almost a head-on collision between Pshat and Drush. Drush once again seeming to take tremendous creative liberties with things that it doesn't even say in the text. The Pshat itself tells us he didn't do anything wrong. He's just old. You know, according to Chinese medicine, it would just say that, you know, he has not a lot of chi energy, not a lot of life force energy because he's used it up. However you want to look at it, he's exhausted. And all of a sudden, our sages are coming and criticizing a righteous character, which, by the way, is true to form. This is something we will see consistently, that whenever a character is portrayed as very righteous in the Pshat, our sages will find a criticism. And when a character is dominantly evil, they will find a saving grace. Anyone know why that is? This is something I harped on and on and on about in my note, right? What is the major thesis statement of the Tanakh? Really, you can summarize it in one sentence. And this illustrates it nicely. My noters, anyone remember? So basically,
Well, I'm thinking of you made like a cycle chart, but does that apply to this question?
could be if I knew what you were referring to. The cycle of what?
I just like when we were learning Navi, I remember you said it was always about like how like the Yidden would mess up and we'd be punished and like a new leader would come and things would be fine.
That's totally the cycle and the entire skeletal structure for all of Sefer Shoftim, correct. Don't know if that's true for all of Navi, even though that makes a lot of sense. I'm just like playing the other books in my mind, yes. But I'm talking about from Chumash, like in Chumash, that's not necessarily the major point, but I'm talking from Bereshit until Divrei Yamim, all the characters come to send one major thesis statement. Yes, Rina?
Is it the idea that even these amazing people that have have built themselves up to such a level of godless, they're human beings, and that we need to know from that two things. Like one is that we don't put them on a level of we can never reach this. Not that we can, but I'm just saying like that these are people, they're real people with real issues and real problems who worked and worked and worked and worked on themselves, but also to know that they were people, so they weren't deities.
And what about the bad guys in the Pshat and our sages coming and just suggesting all of these, you know, mitzvos that they did, even Jezebel? What do you mean? She did Nechum Avelim and what?
Right, because
we don't have that she had any saving graces or any virtues. She was this like awful villainess. Why are Chazal coming and volunteering mitzvos to a non-Jewish evil vixen? So in my note, what? Yeah.
Sorry. No, I was gonna say also that that we should know that Hashem sees everything that we do. Like this is something that I learned, that we should know that Hashem will even if you think that I don't have any zchuyot, right? Hashem sees and he knows, even Izabel had, right? And you should know that Hashem doesn't not notice these things, and you should know that however great you might think you are, keep yourself in check, and however horrible you might think you are, don't forget that there's hope.
Right. So in a nutshell, the motto.
Remember something else you said? They're not cartoon characters. You always said they're not Disney characters. They're not two-dimensional.
Exactly. They're not Disney characters, exactly. And so basically, it's all about navigating the gray, that to be a human is to be gray. There is no black and white in the human experience. There are no good guys that are flawless. That's what Esther is referring to with the cartoon characters. In the Disney world, the good guys are always beautiful, smart, kind, loving, generous, la, 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 la. The bad guys are always ugly, stupid, mean, vicious, and fill in the blanks. And it's this very Christian binary approach to the human condition. And that's why only let your kids watch Pixar. Just kidding. But seriously, Disney is seriously evil because it is so antithetical to the Jewish experience. And so the Tanakh is and the Torah is constantly saying, no, being human is being in the gray. Even if you're David HaMelech, even if you're Moshe Rabbeinu, yeah, guess what? You are not infallible. You weren't immaculately conceived. You are not no, you are not perfect. And that's what makes you perfect, is that your imperfections is exactly what makes you amazing. And so basically, yes, even Aaron can build a golden calf, and even Moshe can mess up, but it doesn't deprive him in any way of his up to here Moshe Rabbeinu status. On the flip side, don't ever think, that's it, game over for me. I am the worst person in the world. I am horrible. I kick puppies. It's like, no, guess what? There is always hope that every bad guy has a saving grace. As our sages say, Haman's offspring were learning Torah in Bnei Brak. What do you mean? They became Talmidei Chachamim. From being Amalek's offspring, they went on to become, who else taught Torah in Bnei Brak? We just read it on Pesach at the Seder. Rabbi Akiva invited all of his colleagues over to Leila Seder to Bnei Brak. So no, not, as they say in Hebrew, like no more, no less. They're equating Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Tarfon with Haman's kids? Oh yeah, what do you mean? They're sitting and steiging over a blood of Gemara in Bnei Brak. What? That's how far you can go. Do not ever think, that's it, it's over for me. And so that is the major, major message consistently running through the sages. So it's not that the sages are just randomly, picking on Yosef and picking on David, and they really have fun with them, just making up, obviously say that facetiously, sins that don't seem to appear in the Pshat. On the one hand, they're trying to balance them out by saying, you guys are not reading the Pshat carefully, look carefully. There's a whole other angle to them. Yes, there were people, yes, they screwed up. Now, for those that learned the Joseph story with me in my note, also recall that specifically with Yosef, and by the way, with David also, another level of agenda behind our sages' work in Midrash. And again, agenda is not a dirty word. It doesn't have to be a dirty word. So we're just going to clear that for 1 second. The other angle is that they were dealing with characters that had been hijacked by Christianity and had been used to propagate their own agenda in the negative sense. And so that's why the sages, whenever they write like a very specific type of sin, usually it's because at the same time in Israel, the church fathers are writing a certain pshat, interpretation of the story that made inroads and waves among the Jewish people. And again, if you want an example, shoot me an email. I'll be happy to send you really, really concrete examples. So yes, there's the polemic angle sometimes, because there are certain biblical characters that the Christians latched onto very, very powerfully, specifically Joseph and David. And that's why, again, the sages are going to emphasize the humanness, the flawedness, because they're trying to debunk the whole Christian interpretation of the Pshat stories. So back to our, breakdown. So according to Drush, and you know what, guys, I'm going to type it up and I'll put it up on Facebook, okay? Until I figure out how to work the Blackboard thing and whatever. So according to Pshat, just really, really simple. Old age, just circulation issues. According to Drush, it's a punishment for sins he committed when he was younger. Okay, that seems to be really, really not Pshat. How the heck do we reconcile this later? According to Remez, okay, so we had defined Remez as structural hints and allusions. You guys had everybody who sent me your questions, you all picked up on something really, really fantastic, and now we're going to start tying things up. You guys all noticed that a certain root or verb appeared in different permutations throughout the stories, and you were like, why does it keep repeating? What is this doing here? You guys recall what it is? Anyone? So people that sent in their questions, wait, Leah, you sent in your question. It was on your list. Oh, dear Balak Lecha. Okay, Toda. Dear Balak is not writing a letter to Balak. It's Arabic and Israeli slang for don't you dare. So that's what I say to my kids is, Dear Balak. Anyway, because they were about to come running in to interrupt. Okay.
Wait, what did I ask?
So in your list of questions, I could be mixing you up with somebody else. Adina, I think you also wrote this in, because I read your questions at the same time and I might have mixed up both your questions in my head.
We also learned together.
Oh, well, that makes perfect sense. The point is, I seem to recall that you guys asked this. But the root that appears, and again, this is a rule of thumb. It's in Hebrew, it's called milah mancha, which means like guiding word. It's when you have a motif, root, or word that appears in multiple forms in a story to create a theme within the unit. So like the term that I gave it, because milah mancha is in Hebrew, but I couldn't find the English equivalent, so I used to call it flag words, where it's words that are like little flags throughout the story that kind of like, make you pay attention. Like, oh, so the root, that is the flag word, throughout the story is yada, to know, right? We are told almost superfluously, and David did not know Avishag, lo yada'a. And then later, where does it appear again? In a completely different context. About Adoniyahu's whole rebellion. And David did not know. And when Batsheva and Natan are talking to David, they say, and your highness did not know, and we did not know. There's this like motif. Not only that, just to show you how deep the motif goes, the hero that replaces Yoav ben Tzeruya as David's like head of the army, or the minister of defense, is Benayahu ben Yehoyada. So it's true that Yehoyada is the name of a famous Kohen family, and according to the Medrash, Benayahu is a Kohen from this line, which is totally perplexing, because the Kohanim are they're not allowed to serve in the army. It's very weird, and yet he is this super samurai ninja warrior who like will stop at nothing, and he's literally the minister of defense. So, but it's just interesting that even there he replaces Yoav ben Tzeruya, and that verb appears again. But once again, we're always told what David doesn't know in different contexts. So that is the remez. Now, the way remez works, we had said, is that it alludes to a different part of Tanakh that we're meant to intersect to show that our story is connected inherently to a different story, and that's why the significance of our story zooms out and is much wider than just our local story. So when you hear somebody not knowing someone, specifically a male not knowing a female, where does your mind automatically go?
Well, it actually even translated as he didn't, he was unintimate with Avishag.
Well, is that art scroll?
Yes.
Do you want me to cry? Do you really want me to cry?
That's what I have.
Stephanie hit it out of the ballpark. Stephanie Zakov just posted Adam and Chava. Exactly, right? V'Adam yada et Chava ishto. And so basically, Yirmiyahu, who is the author, according to the Gemara and Baba Batra of Sefer Melachim, he is wink, wink, nudging to us, right? Little winky emoji that, guys, he didn't know Avishag. Oh my God. So what is he trying to hint to us? When Adam did know Chava, was that a good thing or not good thing? It's a tricky question.
Why would it not be good?
Well, let's see. It got them thrown out of Eden. It's true that the pasuk is the first pasuk of Perek Dalet, and they get thrown out of Eden at the end of chapter 3. But Rashi points out on the spot that it's a flashback. Perek Dalet, that pasuk, is a flashback of something that happened in the Garden of Eden. According to the sages, Chava herself was the forbidden fruit. That really Adam and Chava were supposed to wait till Shabbos to become intimate, and that Adam did not wait, and that they were intimate before Shabbos, and that is why they were thrown out of Eden. There was no magical fruit that was that tempting that it was worth giving up parnasa, period cramps, and painful labors and all the hell that women have been suffering for 5,780 years, you know, because of a freaking fruit. Anyway, so that's sleep easy. No, it was something a lot deeper. So basically, and now we get to the level of Sod. If you were to open up any of the Sod commentaries, including the Sod flavored Hasidic commentaries, right? Because you have Hasidic commentaries that are more mystical and less interested in just straight up finding the point of intersection between the pshat. So those that literally just write name dropping, the sfirot and whatever, they talk about that the reason the motif of Yada appears is that the whole story here is meant to show how David, through Avishag, rectified not just the sin of Adam and Chava, but even his own sin, and that's already on the level of Chassidut. Now we can already get to the intersection part. But on the level of Sod, that we know that David had a very, very essential connection to Adam Rishon. Anyone recall learning Midrashim at any point about what connects David and Adam Rishon? There's at least two that I'm waiting for that you should have encountered. Yes.
Yeah, he
Now,
gave him.
Adina?
He gave him 70 years of life.
Exactly. According to the original master plan, David was never supposed to be born. And Adam Rishon said, why should I live to be 1,000? We need David to come into the world to rectify the world. He's the missing puzzle piece. So I'm going to donate 70 years of my life. I'll die at the age of 930. Let David be born and live 70 years to reach the rectification of the whole process that I'm going to start. So that is perfectly in line. Adam starts the journey of being born, living, and then knowing Chava prematurely, and then David reaches the rectification by not knowing Avishag and reaching a tikkun for Adam Rishon himself. One other midrash connecting Adam Rishon and David HaMelech. Anybody? Yes, Rina.
Hold on one second. This is just sort of doubling back a little bit.
Okay.
That also, maybe this is not really a connection, but what I think is interesting is that in Bereshis, where it talks about Adam and Chava, the word that it uses when they eat from the tree of knowledge and they figure out that they're naked, it says Vayadu, right? Hold on, I found it.
Excellent.
Here. Oh, okay, good. Yay.
Yeah. Well, finish the sentence. I just got all excited. As soon as they ate from the fruit, what did they realize?
Right. So Vayedu ki eruvim. Right. So they realized that they were naked, and then now Yada and this whole thing with the clothing that's connected to Shaul and his whole so there's
the very first act that Adam and Chava commit after eating the forbidden fruit, whatever that was. The very first thing they do.
They make clothes.
They make clothes. Exactly. They make clothes. They seek out clothing. Before that, they did not require clothing. And the interesting thing that I'm trying to remember, it's one of the Hasidic commentators points out on our story, is that the word for clothing in Hebrew is the same word as treason, begadim, bogdim. And that we know that clothing can betray you. And so they say that is from the earliest introduction of clothing into human experience, is that it came from a betrayal. It came from shame, from abusing a certain knowledge. And so now, everybody asks, so wait, but what does that have to do with David? Ilana Amzalag, I don't know if she's with us, but she sent in a beautiful question. She said, wait a second, according to Hasidus, garments is a very, very dominant concept that is a very clear hyperlink, right? What do garments immediately hyperlink to anybody that's ever studied Hasidus?
Thought, speech, and action.
Yes, excellent. The garments of the soul, exactly. So she was like, wait, what is that all about? What do you mean David is no longer deriving benefit from his garments? So now we can graduate to the Hasidic perspective of understanding this story. So just bear with me, because just like it's really hard to describe a spider web to someone, like from which thread do you start? Do you start from the center? Do you start from the edge? Which part of the octagon, like where do you start? It's a spider web. You just have to take it in all at one shot. That's why it's hard to describe Hasidus or the Hasidic perspective on Tanakh, because where do you even start? Because everything is interwoven to form this like three-dimensional picture. So I'm going to try anyway. Basically, Hasidic masters talk about that David, through this final act, had reached a total tikkun of the purification of the body, zikuch haguf, where he had rectified everything possible to man, and he no longer derived life force from this physical world. The Rebbe actually writes about it in what? Oh, okay. So basically, what it is that he was slowly losing any life force connection to this physical world, meaning he in the garments of the soul, thought, speech, and action, anything physical, he was just slipping away. And I'm trying to remember which commentator writes that. Is it one? Yes, one of the Hasidic ones, not the Malbim. That they write that part of why the servants suggest, oh, let's get someone who's a virgin, who's beautiful. They're trying to awaken his connection to the physical world because they want him to continue to rule. And they say that just like Moshe Rabbeinu, who basically separates from Tzipporah, is able to go for 40 days and 40 nights without eating, doesn't really relate to this whole nonsense called the physical world. And that's part of how our sages explain why he wasn't fit to enter the land with the Jewish people, because he didn't relate to them anymore, because they're busy squabbling over stupidity. And he's like, I don't relate anymore, people. Like, what do you care if you're eating sushi or steak or zucchini or watermelon? Like, just eat because it gives you calories and protein that you need to go on. What do you care what it tastes like? Like, just who cares? This physical world is nonsense. We all end up daffodil fertilizer anyway. But that's what made him not fit to be a leader, because he didn't understand where the people were at. And so the commentators point out how David had reached that level where he had managed to rectify everything. Now the Rebbe writes that Moshe Rabbeinu reached a certain level of purification. It's a sicha for Simchas Torah Tafshin Lamed, where he talks about that Moshe Rabbeinu reached that level, but it wasn't perfect, because he said he still felt the pain of lack, meaning he didn't need food anymore, but it wasn't effortless for him. And so what we see here is that for David, he seems to have reached a higher level where he doesn't need anything physical, and he doesn't even experience some kind of like anguish of like lack of physical intimacy or lack of needing the physical. So basically, the servants of King David, they're like, no, we want you to continue ruling over us. So they're trying to bring him back down. So they're not trying to seduce him in the like vulgar sense. They just want to awaken some connection to the animal soul in some way, to connect him to chayos, to basic life force energy, to get him connected so that he stops floating in the supernal realms, like come back and continue to lead us. And so that is how the sages explain why it had to be a virgin, it had to be someone beautiful, because they're trying to create a situation where he's actually tempted, again, not in the vulgar, like grotesque sense, but in the to do a mitzvah sense, because the Hasidic masters actually say, what does it mean he doesn't derive warmth anymore from clothing? He doesn't even derive satisfaction from doing mitzvahs in the sense of egotistical satisfaction. What the Hasidic masters say, I think it was the Tifer Shlomo, or Shlomo Radomsk, that he writes, he's such an anav, he's so humble, he can't even derive like a gishmak of like, whoa, I did a mitzvah for Hashem. It's just like, it doesn't matter. I'm already fused together with Hashem. I'm already there. I'm already there with him. Like there is no me, there is no him. And they're like saying, no, come back to us. We don't want, Shlomo, we don't want whatever. We just want you. And that's why when Batsheva and Natan come before David, what do they yell out passionately after their whole, like mental manipulation with David, trying to get him aroused, trying to get him active again? Yechia Melech forever, right? Without the Lubavitch agenda, right? They say, yes, may you rule over us forever. May you rule over us forever. We're not ready to let you go. And David's saying, but I'm ready to let go. But I'm actually ready. It's been 70 years. I've done everything I needed to do here. So then the question is that we were left with, what is the deal with Natan, with Batsheva? Why do they have to do that whole convoluted, like again, manipulation thing? Dina says, I think that was the Lubavitch agenda, but that's another topic. Okay, if you look carefully at the dry erase board in the corner, because Shmu is a flaming Meshachist, he got me a Yechi yellow flag magnet, and I put it on, and he's like, oh, asit li nachat. Quote, end quote. Oh, Ima, asit li nachat. Samte degel shel Yechi. You put a Yechi thing on your board. Anyway, so just to break it down, how is this the Hasidic approach? Basically, according to Pshat, there's an element of old age old age is simply perspective, like you're separating, the soul and the body are starting to separate. The soul has its place, body has its place. So the soul is no longer used with the body. It's no longer feeding the body that chayas, that life force energy, that, again, you could say the animal soul, what have you, al-pi Pshat, al-pi Drash, punishment, right? In the grand scheme of things, yes, that actually fits, and that's why the clothing, he needs to rectify things. Remez, yada, right? That what is his final rectification? Hold on, Sarala. The final rectification is his ultimate worst sin. The worst sin he committed wasn't the tearing of Shaul's garment. But if we extrapolate the Hasidic terminology, if garments are all your thoughts, your speech, and your actions, what was David's worst garment that he ripped? The act with Batsheva. The sin with Batsheva was the garment that he ripped, and that is what he needs to rectify through not knowing Avishag. FYI, if anything that I say is unclear, please, I beseech, beg, and plead, send me an email. Don't just say, well, I'll figure it out. I'll clarify it either in writing or whatever. So please just shoot me an email saying, this wasn't so clear. Could you please break it down? And then with Sod, we said there's a grand scheme of things here. He's not only rectifying sin with Batsheva, but that Batsheva and Avishag are the vehicles for the ultimate rectification of the sin of Adam Arishon. That's why Adam gave him the 70 years, saying, you will complete me, David. I see this. We'll see later when we do Shira Shirim, how David, of all people, needs to rectify Adam, specifically through these acts of intimacy. Like, of all things, really? You couldn't find something a little more, I don't know, just, that's part of what's so cringy about the story in Perek Aleph is, ugh, like TMI, I don't want to know these things, ew. So that is part of a wider picture. And so basically, with David, he reaches the full rectification, and that's why it ends off and he leaves his last will and testament to Shlomo, and basically, he perishes in the very next chapter. Hold on, there was something I wanted to bring up. We're running out of time, so I'm like getting flustered. Oish. All right, train moved on. Okay, in a super duper nutshell, Natan and Batsheva, just remembered what it was. The midrash that I was fishing for earlier, the second midrash that connects David and Adam Arishon. So in Breshit Rabbah, I think, our sages say that why is Adam Arishon called Adam Arishon? Because it's an acronym of the trajectory of all of human rectification. It's an acronym for Adam, David. Why are you here? Why? נכון, אבל לא סיימנו, אז אמרתי שזה לאו דווקא 9, דוד תנעל בבקשה. תודה חמוד. So that Adam's name is an acronym for Adam, David, and either Moshe or Mashiach. That is the name Adam, that it basically talks about the entire plot arc of human history for the rectification. So now, why do Natan and Batsheva have to do such a weird, convoluted manipulation play? They basically put on like a whole play. Basically, some of you sent in, I think Sarla sent this in, a bunch of you sent in questions saying, I don't understand a bunch of things that's going on. Doesn't everybody know the prophecy that Shlomo is going to rule? Why is Adoniyahu even attempting to rule if everybody knows that Shlomo is supposed to inherit the throne? Why is he even messing with that? Now, the other weird thing that Batsheva says to David when she comes in, and she comes in first, she says to David, look, you swore to me that my son would rule. I dare and challenge any of you to look through Sefer Shmuel Bet and find this pasuk. I dare any of you to look through all of Tanakh, look in Divrei Yamim. Where does David swear to her any such thing in the Tanakh? He doesn't. So this pasuk in Melachim I has stumped many of the commentators, saying, wait, what? When did this exchange happen? Because if it weren't for this little hearsay, we would never even know that such an exchange happened. And so then Natan comes in, and again, you guys sent it all as questions, but they all connect beautifully, right? Some of you sent in saying, wait, Natan's the prophet. How does he not know? And why is he saying, God didn't tell me. I didn't know that Adoniyahu was supposed to rule. Is this mind games? What are they doing with David? So one of the amazing articles that I found on this whole unit that goes through different Gemaras and goes through different sources connecting all the dots. Basically, in the Pshat, there are only hints that David and Batsheva both know that Shlomo is supposed to rule, but it's never overtly said at any point. Why? We don't know. So the question, didn't everybody know that Shlomo was supposed to rule? The answer is no. The answer is not necessarily, so much so, it's not even clear if David, Natan, and Adoniyahu himself knew that Shlomo was supposed to rule. It wasn't clear who was going to replace David. And basically, Adoniyahu sees that Shlomo is this pipsqueak who hasn't even started adolescence properly yet, right? He's under 13. We know this from various sources, Medrash, whatever. Actually, no, not Pshat, only Medrash. And so he says, look, I'll rule in the interim until the prophecy arrives and we know who is supposed to be the full heir and start the Davidic dynasty. Because the prophecy is not yet arrived. So when Natan comes before David and says, God told you and he didn't tell me first, he may very well be genuinely perplexed. I don't think he's playing mind games. He's saying, I didn't get the SMS from God and I'm supposed to know first because I'm a prophet. I don't understand what's going here. Did God change his mind? Well, we do know that Natan did know that Shlomo was supposed to rule because in Samuel 2, Shmuel Bet, when Shlomo is born, God sends Natan to name the child. That, like a fairy godfather, that doesn't sound good at all. Considering the association with Godfather, anyway, whatever. But the point is, he comes in and he says, it's true that you named him Shlomo, but God himself has given him additional name. God is going to call him Yedidya, which means God's BFF. Yedid, the really close friend of Hashem. And that was God's personal name for Shlomo. Now, again, does it say anywhere, and he will rule in your stead? No, it does not say that anywhere. So that's the only hint that Natan knew this child has been chosen, and he's very special. By the way, is it okay that I'm going over? Do people have to run off, log out? If you have to run off, raise your hand. You have 2 minutes, Rina? Okay, you have a little bit more? Okay, no one seems to have to run off. Okay, so basically I'm gonna micro machine man it. If anyone catches that reference, it means you're really old. Okay, so basically Natan knew that it's most likely him, but it wasn't clear. And so basically Natan says, wait, did God change his mind? Did you change your mind, David? What's going on here? Because God did not send me a prophecy that Adoniyahu is supposed to rule. So from my perspective, I'm pretty sure it's still supposed to be Shlomo. Did something happen? Leah, I can tell you which parak it is. It's probably parak Yud Bet or Yud Gimel of Shmuel Bet. So basically, the other point about this whole story is that A, it wasn't clear, and B, it seems like Adoniyahu wasn't trying to steal or usurp the throne, but he's just trying to be a placeholder until the proper heir assumes the throne. And then the final question that some of you had was, why, what do you mean? Pshat no medrash lo evanti. I don't understand. What are you asking about medrash? Can you send it afterwards?
I'm saying
what?
Yeah, I'll ask you.
Yeah, ask later because I want to finish this up before Rina really has to log out. Okay, so in a nutshell, Shlomo, the prophecy has not been yet said, and then when David gets his chayes back, returns back to this world, then he receives the divine transmission of now it's time for Shlomo to rule. And then David is able to communicate that to Natan saying, yes, Shlomo is now ready to assume the throne. So now when Batsheva says to him, we will be chata'im, right? And I said last time that chotea can mean two different things. It could mean a missed opportunity or it could mean sinner, right? If you don't recall what I'm talking about, shoot an email or you could just zip to last week's shiur. But I mentioned, what's the deal with that? Like, what is she referring to? So in one of the articles that I read, it says that basically one of the major fears that Batsheva had in this whole fiasco is that maybe David or God changed their mind and reneged on the promise that Shlomo would rule, and perhaps Adoniyahu was really chosen by David to replace Shlomo because she was worried that the people would still reject Shlomo because they would always look at him as a bastard. Because Shlomo had this whole scandal always looming over him. In fact, Rav Meidan once said something in class that gave me complete goosebumps. He said that the fact that David prays for the child that Batsheva is carrying, again, this is not Shlomo, right? This is Shlomo's stepbrother that never saw the light of day, the first pregnancy from the actual act that David and Batsheva committed, not kosherly 100%, right? Batsheva gets pregnant from that, and that child dies 10 days after being born. He's not a miscarriage, he passes away. And basically, David spends 10 days crying, hysterically begging the child to live. Now, Rav Meidan pointed out something insane. He said anybody normal would never pray for this child to live, ever. He would just sit back, let nature take its course, and pray for this whole disgusting scandal to be swept under the sands of time. And he said the fact that David wants his child to live is completely Looney Tunes. Because if this child lives, this kid is going to spend the rest of his life walking around with a giant neon sign over his head. Hi, my parents are total adulterous, like jerks. And I am potentially illegitimate. And like that's going to rule the throne, that type of situation, a person who's walking around with the neon sign, everyone who will always see him will always point and whisper behind his back, oh yeah, that's the bastard. Yeah, that's the mamzer, right? Even if halachically in a court of law, David can prove, yes, but she had a get, etc., and so forth. That is going to follow that child. And so David should really pray the child will die. The whole scandal is over and done with. After the chuppah, they have another child that's 100% kosher and happily ever after. But that's not what David does. That is a real indicator of David's greatness, that he was like, this is a life, and I take full responsibility for this life, and I will protect this life with every fiber of my being. I will do whatever it takes. And then when the child passes away, David just moves on, but he's not happy about it. So Batsheva, and I'm pretty sure this is the Malbim that points out that he interprets the word chata'im, we will be sinners. David, if you appoint Adoniyahu as king, do you understand what you're going to do to me and Shlomo for the rest of our lives? We will literally be walking around until 120 people pointing and whispering saying, you know why David took the throne away from Shlomo? Do you know why? Because really, things are kind of shady. And people are going to point at Batsheva and say, oh yeah, that's the other woman. We know about her. And so that's his interpretation of what's going on there. Like that she's saying, you have to own your part of the story. It doesn't matter what people are going to say. You promised me, the prophecy said, despite Shlomo's, sketchy background, that's not his fault, it's our fault. But you can't do this to us, to him, to me. And so basically this weaves perfectly back to, or connects back to what we started with, the Tanakh's major agenda. Everybody's great. Doesn't matter where you came from. It only matters where you're going. And so we see that, yes, even if you were the product of potential scandal, adultery, you could still hold your head up high as Shlomo Melech and rule over a nation as a righteous king who built the freaking Beis HaMikdash. Do you understand that this guy built the Beis HaMikdash, something his own father couldn't do? And so that is a classic example where Hashem just sends another message over and over again. I don't care where you came from. Don't tell me sob stories of my mom was like, this, and my dad was like this. My dad was a dealer. My mom was, no, I'm not interested. Who are you today? Who are you choosing to be today? Because you could become Shlomo Melech. He could have said, yeah, forget it. Nope. I'm going to rise up. I'm going to become a king who's going to have one of the best careers in the history of the Jewish people. And I'm going to be zocheh to build the Beis Hamikdash. So once again, did not get to all the questions. I guess I'll either shoot a video summarizing the last point about why Yoav and Adoniyahu grabbed onto the altar corners to save their lives, why David and Shlomo do not kill any of their enemies. That I'll try to summarize either in writing or in video in some format. Yesher koach. And again, feedback. If you want me to do it as a shiur next week, if you're not sick of this yet and you'd rather do it interactively, I'm game. I don't care. I love this material, so whatever you guys want. But if you're like, no, we've really sucked the marrow out of this, could we please move on? So please just tell me. I guess I'll post a Facebook topic, and then everybody just pipe up. And I'll post a poll again, like I did last time, and just, click whatever you want. And yeah, we'll take it from there. Have an awesome week, and see you next week. Take care.
Can we